When you first read Yevgeny Liventsov's records, it's hard to believe they're real. Many people immediately start doubting whether this information was truly channeled from a higher intelligence. The same skepticism lingered for a long time among those who encountered his writings for the first time. Yet the profound depth of the topics he explored, along with a series of astonishing predictions, eventually convinced researchers to publish his works. That is how the first edition appeared, containing notes supposedly dictated by a higher force. The book was released at the end of the 1990s. Liventsov himself, a retired Major General, began recording his first revelations in the mid-1990s. At that time, he was going through an extremely difficult period. He ended up in intensive care, and doctors gave him almost no chance of survival. To everyone's amazement, he not only regained consciousness, but fully recovered, as if he had never been ill. The doctors who treated him described it as a genuine miracle. After this event, Liventsov started receiving information about the nature of the soul, its journey after death, the secrets of the universe, and the origin of humanity. He was convinced that this knowledge was vitally important for understanding both life and death. Around the same time, he met the scientist Ivan Nermivakin. At first, Nermivakin was highly skeptical and considered the notes nothing more than the product of imagination. Over time, however, he changed his mind and even began helping Liventsov spread his ideas. Some of these records touch the deepest questions of human existence. In his works, Liventsov emphasized that life is not only physical existence, but also spiritual growth. Without the spiritual side, a person remains incomplete. He stated that life is not given only once, yet not every soul is granted the chance to return to Earth. In one of his books, he described what the world after death looks like. According to Liventsov, souls that have left their physical bodies enter a special space located near Earth. There is a kind of cylindrical abode of souls, where they undergo a purification process before a possible return. Not every soul, however, gets this opportunity. Some remain trapped in orbit around this abode and are forced to endlessly relive their earthly lives, unable to reincarnate again. Liventsov portrayed this spiritual realm as a completely different reality in which a person becomes aware of their true essence, free from all material limitations. It is here that the soul is cleansed and prepared for a new incarnation, if one is destined for it. Yet the revelations from the higher mind were not limited to life after death. Liventsov claimed he had been shown the secrets of the universe and the existence of numerous civilizations on other planets. According to him, most of these planets are governed in a centralized, harmonious way, unlike Earth, where chaos and disharmony prevail. The higher mind strongly condemns many human actions, especially the creation of weapons capable of destroying the entire planet. Liventsov believed humanity's true purpose is not destruction, but the building of a harmonious society where material prosperity exists alongside spiritual development. According to the records he kept in the late 1990s, the new millennium was supposed to mark the beginning of a great era of change. The biggest shift, he said, was that souls no longer arrive on Earth as completely blank slates, forgetting all previous incarnations. In the past, a person was born with no prior knowledge and only gained wisdom at the very end of life, too late to use it. The higher mind supposedly changed this rule. Now souls reincarnate while retaining important information from their past lives. This knowledge does not surface immediately. It reveals itself at key moments, helping people make the right decisions. As a result, in the new millennium, more and more children were expected to be born with innate wisdom and extraordinary abilities. These children would perceive reality differently, understand the laws of the universe more deeply, and strive for spiritual growth rather than mere material success. These ideas greatly interested Ivan Nermivakin, who studied Liventsov's works in detail. After Liventsov's death, children with truly astonishing abilities began to appear. From the earliest age, some displayed talents that seemed almost impossible to explain. Liventsov was certain that humanity is not alone in the universe. He described many planets inhabited by intelligent beings. On most of them, civilizations are centrally managed and live in harmony. On Earth, however, everything is different. Humanity is following a path the higher mind does not approve of. What worries him most is our relentless drive to create destructive weapons that could wipe out not only ourselves but the entire planet. Lentz believed the main goal of humanity should be both material well-being and spiritual development. Without the spiritual foundation, progress becomes dangerous. Technologies in the hands of people lacking moral values can lead to catastrophe. Civilization must perfect itself, not through technical achievements, but by raising its moral and spiritual level. Only then can we reach the harmony that advanced worlds throughout the universe already enjoy. Numivakin fully supported this view. After studying Lentz's notes, he noticed that more and more children with extraordinary abilities are indeed being born today, as if they carry knowledge from previous incarnations. These children show not only high intelligence, but also a profound understanding of the world around them. This makes one wonder whether there might actually be truth in Lentz's words. Still, the question of life after death remains unanswered. For centuries, people have tried to solve this mystery without success. The Soviet scientist Alexei Prima devoted his entire life to studying the phenomenon and reached some unexpected conclusions. He believed traditional ideas about death are mistaken, and that human consciousness does not vanish when the body dies. Many skeptics claim there is nothing after death. No one has ever returned to tell us what happens there. Yet Prima pointed to numerous cases of people who experienced clinical death and came back with accounts of another world. They described a state of weightlessness, freedom, and lightness. Some even spoke of encounters with mysterious beings. Not all experiences were pleasant, however. Some people saw visions of a world filled with suffering. Prima carefully studied these cases, trying to understand why different people have such different experiences. In the 1990s, he headed the Center for Research into Anomalous Phenomena. Together with his colleagues, he investigated the possibility of an afterlife. In his writings, he stated that death is not the end of the physical body, but the transition of consciousness into another form of existence, a journey of the soul that leaves the body and enters an unknown space. He described how, at the moment of death, a bioenergetic double, something like an energetic skeleton that accompanies a person throughout life, is released from the body. After death, this skeleton gradually dissolves, while the soul continues its existence in another reality. Prima claimed the soul passes through an energetic portal beyond the atmosphere and enters a parallel world inaccessible to our normal perception. He compared this process to ancient Egyptian beliefs about the soul and cited drawings several thousand years old that show the soul leaving the body and rising to another realm. He believed these images were evidence of ancient knowledge that had later been lost. In the 1990s, Prima and his team even conducted experiments attempting to capture the exact moment the soul leaves the body. One photograph taken in the early 1990s, he said, confirmed the reality of the phenomenon. Many questions, however, remained unanswered even for him. In his book, From Mystery to Mystery, he shared stories of people who had survived clinical death and described their experiences. He stressed, though, that none of them had actually entered the true afterlife. They had only glimpsed beyond its border, but never crossed the point of no return. He compared it to the myth of the river Styx. You can see it, but you cannot cross it. That is why no one has ever returned from the real afterlife. The laws that govern that world lie far beyond our understanding. Prima also recounted stories of people who met deceased relatives after death. In one case, a doctor saw the spirit of his mother. She told him that nothing had ended. She still felt alive. When he asked what life after death was like, she replied that the dead are not allowed to reveal those secrets. The scientist was convinced that every person is born with a specific program they must fulfill. As long as the program is not completed, life continues. But what happens if someone dies prematurely? Prima believed that in such cases, the soul is given the chance to return. It reincarnates into the body of a newborn child born near the place where it previously lived, continuing its program and trying to finish what it did not manage to complete in the earlier life. To support this idea, he cited 50 years of research by Indian scientists on reincarnation cases. In roughly half of the cases, souls returned very soon after an unnatural death. Prima also conducted hypnosis experiments in which people suddenly recall details of previous incarnations. According to him, the human soul does not disappear after death. It participates in multiple incarnations, returning to the material world to continue its journey. If his theory is correct, many of us are not living here for the first time. Each time the soul receives a new body, but its knowledge and experience do not vanish. They can appear in childhood as intuitive abilities or unexplained memories that feel like flashes from another life. Numerous studies confirm such phenomena. During hypnotic sessions conducted by Prima, people unexpectedly recalled events from distant past eras they could not possibly have known about. They described places and people that really existed in history. But if the soul reincarnates, why does it have to keep coming back? Prima believed every new life is a lesson. The soul gets the chance to correct mistakes, learn new things, and move towards spiritual perfection. Only after completing this path can a person reach a state where reincarnation is no longer needed. He also mentioned that some souls after death cannot find a new body. They become stuck between worlds, unable to move forward. According to Prima, this may explain the existence of ghosts, energetic entities that remain in our space but cannot interact directly with the living. Another fascinating aspect of his research was the nature of time. If the soul is not bound to a physical body, does that mean it can exist outside the time we know? He claimed that in the afterlife time flows differently. It can stretch or contract, and consciousness can perceive events from different eras simultaneously. One of the greatest mysteries remained. What happens when a soul finally completes its cycle of reincarnations and no longer returns? Where does it go? Prima suggested that after a certain number of lives, the soul reaches complete harmony. At that point, it no longer needs new incarnations because it has learned all its lessons. Such souls, he said, merge with the higher mind and become part of the greater force that governs the universe. These ideas echo many ancient philosophical teachings that state the ultimate goal of human life is not material wealth but spiritual enlightenment. That is why developing both the intellect and moral perfection is so important. Prima urged people not to fear death, but to see it as a natural transition to another form of existence. He was convinced that our physical body is merely a temporary vessel for consciousness, which does not disappear but continues its journey in another reality. Nevertheless, despite all the research, the mystery of death remains unsolved. We can only speculate based on the experiences of those who survived clinical death, on ancient teachings, and on modern studies. Perhaps one day science will provide clear answers. Until then, each of us must decide for ourselves what to believe. If this topic interests you, it is worth exploring the work of other researchers who have devoted their lives to investigating the boundaries of consciousness and life after death. Their discoveries may help you see the world, your own life, and what awaits us beyond it, in a completely new light.